Okay, mate, no worries. I'll do it. Yeah, okay, stop. Oh, you got it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, TPC doesn't sit down with them. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Mother's Day here. 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. You got it? Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2. Here we are. What a wonderful day here. It's a great day for cricket. Great day. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, you got it.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Happy? Cool. Another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool.
Kai whakama o ngā tuhe e te tālawe. Ki hoto ka hoa o ku whai aki e pole pole. Ilo he tonga kotoa, ilo I he fo I kolote. Nuku'alofa pe Kai whakama o ngā tuhe e te tālawe. Ki hoto ka hoa o ku whai aki e pole pole. Ilo he tonga kotoa, ilo I he fo I kolote. Kama puna me I kale hau e ata. Tangi tangi e fo I malau o e ta aki moe. Joka soa kai Low olive Na e ana fefe O no folata Awia isene Kai fiu tali Si I hei lala ve Pea mudali Si I kakala fua pe Ne hange si alupe Fiu kumi si ane mafua O ne si utaka O tuula isuva Tapa e uhila Whakalava ahi fafua Ke whakahaele Si ipele o mala e kula Teniti Ne hange si alupe Fiu kumi si ane mafua O ne si utaka O tuula isuva Tapa e uhila Whakalava ahi fafua Ke whakahaele Si ipele o mala e kula Ai tauanga Si ilupe he palasi Pea tomo loto Moi fuka I panga Hena e ongo mai Si I tutulu ai langa kali Toa koma afu Ufe ia ai hai Mickey J. Ai tauanga Si ilupe he palasi Pea tomo loto Moi fuka I panga Hena e ongo mai Si I tutulu ai langa kali Toa koma afu Ufe ia ai hai Tokos for life Joka soa kai Denny D Mickey J.
Well, good morning, everyone. Right Honourable Christopher Luxon, Prime Minister of New Zealand delegation, members of the media, on behalf of His Majesty's Government and the people of Tonga, I'm delighted to welcome you back to your second visit here to Tonga, along with members of your delegation. Last time you were here, Prime Minister Luxon, I hosted you for a private lunch as Speaker of Parliament on the sidelines of the Pacific Island Forum Leaders Conference back in 2024. And just 3 months ago, following my appointment as Prime Minister by the King, my first congratulatory call from a world leader was from you, Honourable Prime Minister Luxon. A small gesture, but perhaps one that truly reflects the closeness of our two nations, and not just geographically. We have just concluded a meaningful discussion upstairs in my office where we reaffirmed Tonga and New Zealand's relationship, continuing to grow stronger and stronger through targeted and effective support of key priorities to our government, including better public service, economic growth, and law and order, amongst other things. Tonga greatly values its long-standing partnership with New Zealand. Our ongoing cooperation reflects the spirit of the Pacific family, grounded in trust, shared values, mutual respect for one another, and so forth. Over the years, New Zealand has strengthened our workforce cooperation through labour mobility scheme, seasonal employment schemes, which have provided important economic support through remittances that have been vital to Tonga's economic growth. We've also experienced tangible benefits from our partnerships, and I highlight in particular education, health, and connectivity through the co-funding of a second undersea telecommunication cable, soon to be launched later this month in Vava'u. New Zealand's support has also extended to supporting key democratic and rule of law institutions. We're grateful for New Zealand's assistance in rebuilding the new Whalealea and office complex, and for funding the scoping study of the planned judiciary complex headquarters. We welcome the lowering of non-tariff barriers for Tonga's pineapple exports into New Zealand, supporting our agriculture, especially from the Vava'u group of islands, and the construction of supported auxiliary services. We also welcome growing private sector collaboration from New Zealand business and investors, including the recently signed Memorandum of Understanding between Sudima Hotels in New Zealand and His Majesty the King Tupou VI for the development of a hotel at the new Parliament precinct, which will further contribute to Tonga's economic development and tourism sector. The upscale hotel, resort and convention centre will create up to 100 permanent and part-time jobs, contributing approximately 18 million ba'anga annually into the local economy through wages and procurement. It will benefit the community widely by catalysing on new investment and meet the growing demand for quality accommodation. On security, Tonga recognises New Zealand as a proactive regional partner in addressing shared threats and challenges. Our partnerships in security, including cooperation on customs, policing, transnational crime, intelligence sharing, and border security, continue to strengthen our collective efforts. Vital to our joint effort to reduce the supply of illicit drugs through our borders and the harm on our society. We're exploring deepened cooperation, particularly in regional security, ocean management, sustainable economic investment and trade, while continuing to build on our shared Pacific cultural and commercial connections. On New Zealand visa access, I would like to say that I personally appreciate, and on behalf of the Government of Tonga, the decision to lower the cost of visa applications during the one-year trial period, which will further increase accessibility, affordability, and strengthen people-to-people connections between our two nations. As a Pacific family, New Zealand is home to more than 100,000 people of Tongan heritage. Reflecting on the deep and enduring cultural ties between our two nations, I'm very confident that with your leadership, Prime Minister, New Zealand will help us advance the prosperity of our blue Pacific continent. In closing, I very much look forward to working closely with you, Prime Minister Luxon, and your government to strengthen critical areas in our partnership that will further support the long-term prosperity and security of our two nations. Malo apito. I pass on the mic to you.
Well, malo alele, kia ora, good afternoon everybody. Prime Minister, it is absolutely thrilling to be back here in Tonga again, my second time as Prime Minister of New Zealand. Tongan hospitality is incredibly hard to beat, and it's an incredibly beautiful country. You've got the best fish in the Pacific, I'm convinced of it, and you've got stunning beauty across this whole country, and I've got to experience it in recent trips, and it's been absolutely fantastic. It's also really delighted for you being elevated to this position of Prime Minister. Amanda and I so enjoyed our time with you and Lady Whakafuna back when we came last time, and we remember that lunchtime conversation very well, and we hit it off well then, and we've had a fantastic conversation just now as well. We've got a lot to do to make sure that we're advancing outcomes for the people of New Zealand and also Tonga, and we're very confident that by working together in the way that we already have, and will continue to deepen this relationship under your leadership. So thank you very much for that. As you touched on, we have 100,000 Tongans that are in New Zealand. They have been incredible. They have added a lot to our country. They've contributed a lot and achieved much. You've even beaten our rugby league team, which has not been appreciated in Wellington at times, but we want to say thank you very much, and thank you for the wonderful gift that I got of a signed Tongan Rugby League jersey, which was very kind of you, I think, and very nice of you. But look, we know the connections between our two great countries is very, very strong, and we've brought a very big delegation here of very successful Tongan Kiwis across all the world, across the areas of politics and sports and culture and business links as well. Congratulations on the partnership and the MOU you've signed with Sudima. That's a fantastic achievement, and they're known as an outstanding partner in our tourism sector, which is our second biggest sector in New Zealand. They're a very good partner to be signing up with as well. It's clear from the meeting that we've had that the Prime Minister and I have very common goals with what we're trying to do in leading our respective countries, and our agendas are very similar. We're very focused on improving public services. We're very focused on advancing and driving economic growth, and also restoring and improving law and order outcomes as well. New Zealand is very supportive and committed to those efforts as well. And from the more than $50 million a year that New Zealand now spends on bilateral development cooperation with Tonga, I'm pleased to announce a $5.25 million package over 5 years to improve health outcomes and systems and services across Tonga. We're also committed to boosting economic development and resilience in Tonga, and therefore are providing $20 million over the next 2 years in general budget support, and providing a further $5 million in climate flexible funding for Tonga, as well as $2 million to expand what has been a very successful effort around resilient food programs and systems in Tonga as well, because there's such a huge potential and some amazing pineapples and watermelons that are grown here. As I said, the sweetest pineapples, I think, in the Pacific. We're also increasingly working on security issues together, because Polynesia's security is New Zealand's security, and it makes sense for us to work and collaborate together on the common threats that we see, particularly the scourge of drugs, illegal drugs, which is a big problem for our communities in New Zealand and also Tonga alike, and across the broader Pacific region. We have the New Zealand Police, Customs, Defence Force and the Salvation Army with us on this delegation, and that is because we want to be able to partner and work together, as we have been doing increasingly in practical ways, whether it's drug detector dogs, helping intercept drugs at sea, coordinating intelligence, and then growing community-based alcohol and drug support services, which we're both a focus for both of us in our respective countries. At the end of the day, as you so well put it, New Zealand and Tonga are family. We are part of a Pacific family, and that's how we very much view this relationship, and we want our blue Pacific continent to do exceptionally well in the years ahead, and there's no reason why we can't, and we'll do that by working together and partnering together where we find common ground together as well. So, Prime Minister, all the very best. I know you're going to be a great leader for this great country, and I'm looking forward to our friendship and our partnership continuing to deepen in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Now I would like to open the floor for 3 questions. 3 each.
Thank you, Prime Minister Lotfa Whanua. Malo Lele, Prime Minister Right Honourable Christopher Luxon. Catalina Siasa from Tonga Online. If the situation in the Middle East continues to disrupt the fuel supplies, Prime Minister Luxon, what do you see in your crystal ball for the disruptions of the Air New Zealand flights to Tonga and the Pacific Islands? And how committed is the New Zealand government to keeping the air links running to Tonga during a looming fuel crisis?
Yeah, look, thank you very much for your question, and it's a very good question. It's a big focus of preoccupation for the New Zealand government. We personally as a country are in quite good shape with respect to our fuel supplies, whether it be jet or petrol or diesel, but obviously we are in constant contact with the industry. A big part of that is obviously aviation, and as you've seen all around the world, fuel prices and jet fuel prices have increased dramatically for many airlines. I have the CEO of Air New Zealand travelling with us in this delegation for that very reason, but I know he is deeply committed to doing everything he can to maintain air links into the Pacific, given we know how vital that is. And of course, what the Prime Minister and I talked about in our bilateral was we of course stand ready to share any of the intelligence or information that we have, as well as that information that he can gather from his conversations in the region as well, to make sure that our countries are supporting each other as well. So we're very cognizant of it. I think what we're all wanting to see is a very rapid resolution to this conflict and the suffering to stop, and that's what we really need to see as a negotiated resolution to the conflict in Iran and in the Middle East.
Prime Minister Whanua, how concerned are you with a likely disruption to travel and also the diesel supply for our power?
Look, I think in terms of what we can do is, as a government, we can manage people's expectations, and a lot of what's happening in the region, and obviously as an impact of the Strait of Hormuz restrictions beyond our control. But what we can do is we can prepare as best we can, and part of the sharing of intelligence with our partners such as Australia and New Zealand is putting us in a best case preparation for a lack of supply or any disruption. So I think in terms of travel, we can wait for what Air New Zealand has to say about that. But my concern is about ensuring that we have enough energy for the country in the meantime. And for now, we seem to be okay.
Lord Whawhanua, what's the Tongan government's stance on visa-free travel for Pacific nationals to New Zealand? Do you think it's unfair that that relationship isn't reciprocated? And what are your concerns on mass migrations? And Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, you're more than happy to add any further comments as well.
Yeah.
Look, what New Zealand does in their own domestic policy in terms of immigration is up to the New Zealand government, and I respect their position. However, on a personal note, we do acknowledge the fact that there are 100,000 Tongans in New Zealand, and there are lots of considerations that have to be made, not just by the government, but also the Parliament in New Zealand. I support whatever move New Zealand decides to make, whether they want to liberalise the step towards facilitating and making it more affordable in terms of the current visa situation is one that's most welcome, but I don't want to preempt anything that's happening within New Zealand's domestic politics.
Yeah, and what I'd add to that, as I've talked about it before, is across the Pacific, yes, there's we're constantly asked about what more can we do to enable and liberalise immigration and make it easier with respect to visas in particular. And what we've done over the last 2 years in government is to make sure that we double the amount of a multi-entry visa out to 2 years. We've had a threefold increase in the speed of processing of visas from the Pacific. We've had a 25% reduction in cost. We've also said if you get a visitor visa in Australia, that's good in New Zealand as well. And again, we will constantly keep looking for opportunities for us to manage our risk-based immigration system and make sure that if there's any more that we can do, we'll continue to look at that. It's a very dynamic system, and we'll continue to look at it. But we've heard the request, as I said to you earlier, from day one, taking on the Prime Ministership of New Zealand. It's been a common request across the Pacific, and I understand that. And we've done, I think, more in 2 years than any previous government in New Zealand has to liberalise those settings as best we can.
Thank you so much, Lord Whawhanua. Welcome back again, Honourable Prime Minister.
Good to be back.
My name is Milika Lupano from Kelea Publication Limited, and my question will be on transnational crime and drug trafficking. You mentioned on your recent trip to Samoa that drug trafficking networks from South America are increasingly using the Pacific as a transit route. Tonga has seen increasing drug seizures and arrests in recent years. What specific support or cooperation is New Zealand prepared to offer Tonga to strengthen maritime surveillance and border security to stop drugs and these criminals' activities? Thank you.
Yeah, look, I think all of us in the Pacific as Pacific leaders have observed that we, have become increasingly a more of a highway for drugs and a market for drugs out of South America in particular. We've seen the advent of narco subs, for example, ships coming into the Pacific with large quantities of drugs. There's 4 things we have to do. One is we have to stop the drugs at sea. We have to stop the drugs at the border. We have to stop the distribution of drugs in country. And then finally, we have to make sure we're giving proper support to the social harm that it's caused with better addiction services. And that's common to New Zealand as much as it will be to Tonga, Samoa, Fiji and Australia. We're all wrestling with the same problem. And so what I've been impressed about is the last 6 months in particular, we've brought our police commissioner here, we've brought our controller of customs, we've got our head of the Navy here as well. We've been coordinating and working with your organisations, your agencies, as well as ours, as well as Australia, as well as Samoa, as well as Fiji, in a much more regional coordination, because essentially it's a Pacific problem and it's a Pacific solution that's needed to be designed. And so the work of sharing intelligence, where we've used our P8 aircraft, for example, to identify ships and track ships that are coming into our region that are not clear as to what their purpose is, or we suspect are carrying drugs. You've seen some very good efforts recently, even us working with the French, particularly around 4.5 tonnes, I think, of coke that came into the region as well, and that was apprehended. So there's a lot for us to do through customs, through police, through the defence assets, but also, frankly, with Salvation Army have come on this journey with us and this delegation as well, because it's something that actually Lord Whakawhanua and I talked about actually when he was Speaker, about the work that we need to do a better job. I know there's a lot more for us to do in New Zealand around better addiction services, better support, and around the social harm of drugs as well. So that's where we can collaborate and what we can do together.
Hi, Ben Strang from AFP. Lord Whakawhanua, Tonga, according to I think it was the budget documents last year in June, owed 160 million panga to China, the Exim Bank there. Also been dealing with, I guess, infrastructure issues since the eruption in 2022. So my question is, what impact has that loan and needing to pay that off by 2030 had on Tonga's recovery from the eruption and the infrastructure issues that have been had? And I guess going forward, where do you stand on taking loans from China in particular? And I suppose for Mr. Luxon, how can New Zealand support, I know you've mentioned budget support in this announcement, how can New Zealand support Tonga further with those infrastructure issues?
So I think the first part of your question about the China loan is that Tonga is paying that loan off, and we expect to complete payment by 2030. We could use that money for other things, but Tonga committed to signing a loan agreement, and we intend to pay off what we signed to do. The second part of your question was about the reconstruction and recovery from Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai, volcanic eruption and tsunami. In terms of the government programs for that recovery, they're largely complete. There are some leftovers that the new government has come in and started to wrap up, such as the relocation of the Mango community to Ewa, which His Majesty launched the opening of the hall and the accommodation for the villagers who were affected. That was last month. So I think in terms of prioritising loans in the future, we are currently in a position where we're not taking any more loans. We're not taking any more debt. We're being a lot more clever with our fiscal management, and as a matter of principle, our budget is one of deficit, and so we have to support that with bonds, internal bonds, and also just being a lot more clever and efficient about our spending. So that's why our government's focus in our first 100 days is around efficiency, so that the people of the country and taxpayers get more value out of their government.
Yeah, and I just think the Prime Minister's doing a great job of getting his fiscal books in order. We talked about that because we've got the same challenges. We came to power with a government that had run up our debt 3 times, from $60 billion to $180 billion, and we're writing out $10 billion interest bills alone just on that debt, and we know how damaging that is for future generations. And so we talked a little bit about our respective fiscal strategies, and we're very aligned on making sure we get our respective books in order, because it's important for our future and for our kids and our grandkids that they're not lumbered with all of that debt. And so we've got the same program essentially in New Zealand to get ourselves from deficit into surplus, as you know, as quickly as possible. And with respect to New Zealand's support and partnership with Tonga, that is, just goes without saying. We look for opportunities. I was here last time and we did some investment with there's a massive horticultural, agricultural opportunity here, and we put some investment into irrigation systems, working with Nishi group here, who we'll meet again with tomorrow. We had a 7-fold increase in productivity as a function of that investment, and as a result, that makes that sector a much stronger driver of growth in the economy here as well. So, we will be led by the Prime Minister as to where he thinks the opportunities are, and where he'd like to see us support and tailor that investment. And it's been a very good partnership, a very effective one, and we'll continue to look to do more.
We've got time for 2 questions.
Prime Minister Luxon, there was a petition to the New Zealand Parliament to allow passport holders from 6 Pacific nations to enter New Zealand and get visitor visa on arrival. Why is the government offering lower visa fees but a bit hesitant to remove the barrier altogether for your Pacific neighbours?
Yeah, look, there's 2 things, as I explained, going on. One is we've tried to create a 2-year multi-entry visitor visa. We've said the Australian visitor visas are good. We're speeding up our processing. We've got fast track for emergency visas that are needed, and we're obviously lowering the cost. And so that's been our initial focus in the first 24 months of our government. Equally, yes, you're right, there was a petition presented to Parliament. Our process is that goes into what's called a select committee for about 6 months, where the public and different stakeholders can put voice to that petition and discuss whether they think that's a good idea or a bad idea. And then that report back from our select committee then goes to the Minister of Immigration, and she will give that due consideration. So we need to let that run through a process, and then we'll look at where we are and take it from there.
Whakawhanua. Good afternoon. Just with regards to drug use on the domestic front, how is Tonga tracking with both drug use and also seizures at the border, and how critical is the rehabilitation side? How important is it that get addressed?
Thank you, Barbara. And I think that's a really important question, because we put a lot of focus on the capture of drugs in terms of its transnational shipment. But domestically, we're finding that the cost of drugs on the street have gone up, which is indicative of scarcity of supply, which is a good thing. However, we don't have the data on the consumption of drugs, which is why we are now advocating for wastewater testing, which will start with public facilities such as the police stations, government facilities like the Prime Minister's office, and hospitals, schools. It would give us a lot more scientific data on a level that we don't currently have. And in terms of the addressing the harm, we're now focusing our illicit drugs task force on harm reduction, because supply is somewhat reduced. It's not the end, but we believe that now we need to look for harm reduction in terms of how we care for those who are put in prison. There's going to be a focus on separating the youth from the general prison population. So I'm advocating for not just the youth diversion scheme that we passed in our law last year, but also juvenile delinquent facilities, as well as vocational training, so that we reduce the number of recidivism in jail. But generally speaking, we need more scientific data to inform our policies, and that's where the wastewater treatment will come in.
Mr. Luxon, what commitment have you given to the rehabilitation side? Because I know Salvation Army paid, they fundraise to do that. So what's New Zealand doing?
Yeah, look, I mean, as you know, we have a number of partnerships with social service organisations that are often our best placed to actually, tackle the problem rather than government running an agency to do that itself. And that's when you partner with people like the Salvation Army, whether it's on drug rehabilitation or whether it's on social and community housing, has been a very good partnership. So we'll look to continue to expand that at home. And obviously, that's the reason we want the Salvation Army head on this delegation as well, to understand if there's opportunities to expand services here. And of course, as I said, because we're friends and we're partners, if there's support that's possible or needed, we're very open to those conversations. But I think the Prime Minister's right. I mean, we look at our wastewater as a key indicator of what's happening and what the mix of drugs consumed in New Zealand is, and that's where we've seen a big spike in meth and probably lowering of some other drugs, but a big drive in meth because of what we're facing with the narco traffic out of South America in particular. Yeah.
Okay. One last question. Tapinga from 88.1 FM. Just a quick question to both of you. Where do Tonga and New Zealand stand on with regards to the crisis in the Middle East? And to you, Prime Minister Luxon, how confident are you? 8 months away from general election in New Zealand, how confident are you to come back and as a Prime Minister in New Zealand? Thank you.
Got two good questions in there. Look, the first thing I'd say around the Middle East conflict is that we want to see that resolved as quickly as possible. We expect civilians to be protected. We expect international human rights, humanitarian law to be upheld, and we really encourage the Iranians with the indiscriminate attacks on the Middle Eastern countries, particularly into civilian infrastructure, to stop and to actually resolve through negotiation a settlement, because that's in the interest of the world and in the interest of all of us. So that's very much our position there, that we want to see that resolve as quickly as possible. And exactly as your Prime Minister is thinking about it as well, we are reassured that our current position, but we're also prepared and preparing for, should this be a protracted conflict, which we don't want to see, it's right that we start to bend our mind to getting 2 or 3 months ahead of this thing so that we can get organised quicker and earlier and better serve our people. And with respect to the election, we've got a long way to go to November 7th. And our real challenge is actually, I want to see more New Zealanders feeling the economic recovery that's underway. And that's really a focus of what we're doing throughout the year. Everything's about, this election is going to be all about the economy. And I think I'd lay my record up against my opposition any day of the week on the economy. Yep.
My answer about Iran is basically what Prime Minister Luxon said. Tonga subscribes to international rules-based order. We don't advocate for violence, and our foreign policy remains friend to all and enemy to no one. So we hope there's a resolution to the conflict as soon as possible for the betterment of humanity and also for our own trade and food security.
Well said. Thank you very much.
And that wraps up our time. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate Honourable Prime Minister Luxon.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Takato e whakakumake pe moe. Tale ki Premier ko ia Nusila, Christopher Luxon, tama whoki ai eki Premier ko ia Tonga, Lord Whawhanua. Whangai ka whawhangia pe me he St. George Building me Nuku'alofa, alpatiki sina, ma whoki Webster Junior rea, kau me sake whamoki o, kamo mea.
So I got you all